And hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. We do have some breaking news with regard to the BBC and Donald Trump, and it gets a whole lot worse for the BBC. Yes, of course, the big story over the last week has been with regard to the BBC doctoring one of Donald Trump's speech at the Capitol back in 2021. It was aired, of course. However, there has been yet another revelation, and they didn't just do it once, but twice. It's going to get a lot tastier, this whole scandal. As always, guys, we are going to break it down in today's video. But first, please do hit the like button and hit the subscribe button for more. So here you go, guys. As you can see, BBC doctored Donald Trump's speech a second time as US President threatens legal war. Whistleblowers have suggested concerns were ignored by editorial staff. Footage of a Donald Trump speech was doctored by the BBC a second time as editorial staff ignored concerns about it. The footage was broadcast on an episode of Newsnight in 2022 and suggested that Mr. Trump was encouraging his supporters to riot, reports The Telegraph. A former White House chief of staff accused BBC of airing splicing the footage. However, his concerns were ignored by Newsnight presenter Kirsty Wark. Now, an insider has told The Telegraph a further discussion the day after the broadcast was quickly shut down. In the Newsnight segment, a broadcast on June 9, 2022, Mr. Trump appeared to say, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol, we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we fight. We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you aren't going to have a country anymore." This links two separate sentences to suggest that Trump was directly telling his supporters to act violently. What Mr. Trump actually told supporters was, "Now it is up to Congress to confront the rigorous assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down and we're going to walk down. Anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them." Just under an hour later, Mr. Trump was talking about the elections being corrupt. He said most people would stand there at 9 o'clock in the evening and say, "I want to thank you so much," and they go off to some other life. But I said something's wrong here, something's really wrong and can't have happened, and we fight. We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, we're not going to have a country anymore. After the footage was played by Newsnight, Ms. Wark interviewed Mick Mulvaney, the former White House chief of staff for Mr. Trump, who resigned from the administration following the storming of the Capitol. Mr. Mulvaney directly accused Newsnight of splicing the footage, adding, "That's the type of messaging that so many people in my country find frustrating, is that it's hard to actually get the facts. If we're going to have a debate about what this was and prevent it from happening again, I think part of that is to make sure we're straightforward in our presentation of what actually happened." Former Newsnight graphic designer David Shudor told The Telegraph sometimes there would be a little post-mortem of the show from the night before, and somebody brought it up saying, "What happened with that clip of Trump?" One producer said, "How did that go out? Why did that even happen?" The editorial editor, not the videotape editor, kind of brushed it off, and I thought that was extraordinary that something like that has gone out. There is no evidence that any action was taken in relation to the Newsnight episode. Shadow Culture Secretary Nigel Huddleston said the argument that bias at the BBC isn't institutional is falling apart with each example. These aren't mistakes, but editorial decisions that make a mockery of the character, responsibility for impartiality. This is, of course, hitting a lot of news sites as we speak right now. Let's try and get a little bit of reaction with regard to this.
Camilla, our jaws are on our desks. The BBC banged to rights 2 years ago doing the same monkey business.
I know. So this Newsnight episode of June the 9th, 2022 was flagged to us by somebody called David Shudor, who used to work as a graphic designer on the show. And he said that he felt there was something eerily familiar about the way that Panorama had spliced the clip of the speech for that documentary that they put out in October last year. We then sort of interrogated that line of thinking and thought to ourselves, well, what do you remember? And he said, I remember it vividly. I worked on that episode. It was presented by Kirsty Wark, and it featured a Republican calling out the splicing live on air. To be fair, it even had an air of familiarity with me because I watch Newsnight a lot, watch all news programmes, watch GB news programmes, watch everything I can in order to be well informed. So something familiar about it. Never got picked up at the time. Obviously, the Newsnight episode plays out very, very clearly. You can see how the clip has been edited. It's not exactly the same edit as Panorama, it should be pointed out, but you still get this splicing between "we will march" and "we will fight like hell," which is presented seamlessly as if it hasn't been edited, and then the imagery cuts to scenes of people fighting. The fact that Mick Mulvaney calls it out live on air, even though he is not at that point a Trump supporter, this should also be pointed out. Yeah. He was White House Chief of Staff. He left after January the 6th because he was disgusted with what happened in the Capitol that day. And then he went on to be quite a vocal Trump critic. He says to Kirsty Walk, who, can I just caveat, is a journalist I've always respected and admired. He says to her, hang on, that clip's not quite right. That's how it plays out on the show. The show is coming to an end, admittedly. There's another reporter on there from BuzzFeed commenting on the events in Washington that day. The show comes to an end without further incident. David Chaudhry, our whistleblower, says that he vividly remembers being in an editorial meeting the next morning where somebody, one of the producers, and we're all in telly, so we know how this works, you have a post-mortem of the show the night before, and you say to each other, what happened with that clip? That was a bit embarrassing. Mick Mulvaney called it out live on air. Concerns were raised. According to Mr. Chaudhry, quickly dismissed. We have, at The Telegraph, put all of this to the BBC and we are awaiting a response. So we put in our inquiry at noon. We gave them a deadline of 4. They're still ruminating.
Well, they can ruminate.
That is absolutely scandalous. And by the way, this is 2 separate incidents now where they've done it. So they can't say that this was a mistake. This is damn right defamation. What they're trying to do to Donald Trump is absolutely disgusting. One time, already knew one time was already enough, but doing it a second time, and again, it wasn't the same clip, it was different. But still, of course, splicing that together to make it look like he was inciting violence. So on 2 separate occasions, they were at it and they were trying to manipulate what he was saying. This is absolutely diabolical, and Trump should go for a second billion now and try and sue them, because this is it's just shocking. It really is. This is one of the biggest stories we've, of course, covered this year, I think. Really, if you're thinking about it, our national broadcaster doing this to our strongest allies, president or former president at the time. Disgusting and absolutely shocking. Guys, as always, do let me know your thoughts on this down there in the comment section below. We'll be keeping you up to date as this sort of rumbles on. Of course, this lawsuit has been pushed forward by Trump and his team. They're going after $1 billion. And of course, that's regardless. That's going ahead regardless if the BBC even apologise. So it's happening anyway. So I'll be looking forward to seeing his response in the morning with regard to a second time. Guys, as always, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.